Hello, and welcome to Beyond Biotech, the weekly podcast from Labiotech. I'm Dylan Kassane, and this is episode 175 for the podcast. In today's episode, I'm joined by Dr. Markus Kosch, head of the EU Oncology Business Division at Daiichi Sankyo. A physician by training with a deep academic background in oncology, Markus has spent over 2 decades advancing cancer care, from clinical practice to leadership roles shaping strategy across Europe and Canada. Since joining Daiichi Sankyo in 2021, he has been at the forefront of one of the industry's most ambitious ADC pipelines, overseeing more than 60 clinical trials across 24 countries and driving landmark approvals that are redefining treatment in breast, lung, and gastric cancers. I hope you'll enjoy my discussion with Markus Kosch. But first, let me tell you about the sponsor of this week's episode, Cadence. Looking for the perfect space to grow your life science company? Cadence Science Partner is Europe's leading provider of cutting-edge lab and office spaces, tailored to your needs. Cadence puts you at the center of innovation, giving you the chance to connect with top researchers, universities, and investors through its international network. Here you'll join a vibrant community of innovators driving real change. Are you ready to take your research to the next level? Learn more at cadence.com, where innovation thrives. Markus, welcome to Beyond Biotech.
Dylan, thanks for having me.
Markus, just to get started, tell me a little bit about your journey into oncology. What actually drew you into the field of cancer?
Good question, and I'm 55 now. It's been quite a long journey already, Dylan. So, look, I always wanted to study medicine. So I went to medical school, and from the beginning, as a student, I was always fascinated by oncology as a therapeutic area. Probably a couple of drivers for this. Look, my father died of cancer when I was a late teenager. I always sense that's the field where the essence of medicine, where things become really urgent, and also the medical need is high. So many reasons focusing on that, which I did then after finishing medical school. And then, I treated patients at a university setting. Obviously, I did also other things, nephrology, intensive care. And then when moving into the industry, first in medical affairs, later in different senior management roles, it was always oncology that has been the core of what I'm doing and focusing on.
Did your time as a physician actually shape the way that you came to look at oncology once you moved into industry?
I think it did, actually. Yes, I worked almost 10 years in a university hospital setting. I boarded there. I'm still teaching there. I'm still having a professorship there and teaching students. And that has clearly helped me in a couple of ways. The clinical insights, of course, helped me now to understand the needs, the fears, the hopes of patients. I think it has helped me living an intrinsic patient centricity approach, let's say. I also got firsthand the impression how important innovations are, how much, especially in oncology, new medicines are needed. I've been on the clinical side part of impressive success stories in terms of improving treatment standards from 20 years back when I was in the clinic to now. This has been really a success story, I would say, of this disease. And of course, it gives me also some credibility with keys, with HCPs, with physicians, research institutions we work with. They know I understand their perspective in science, in the clinic as well. So yes, I think it is also shaping how I do my job now at Daiichi Sankyo.
Tell me a little bit about Daiichi Sankyo. It's had really a 40-year legacy already in oncology. Here in Europe, they're working in solid and blood cancers. I mean, this is not a small company, and it's not a small role they've had in addressing oncological problems.
No, you're right. Daiichi is like a more than 120-year-old company, always focused on research from the beginning, the early 20th century. And there's also a long legacy of, you're right, innovating also oncology medicines. In Europe, we are only present, or only, but now for 40 years, I would say. The beginnings having been more primary care, cardiology, lipid-lowering medicines. So the full focus on oncology started just 10, 15 years back, I would say, and the really breakthrough for the company and this becoming a priority strategically came with the ADC platform, no doubt. That's probably in short. And now then we founded a dedicated business unit, oncology, only to ensure focus and dedication and the right resourcing. We have started that 5 years back, and since then, actually, it's also a clinical and let's say commercial success story in Europe and on a global level.
So a 120-year-old company, not a European company, but the headquarters here in Europe in Munich. I know you've got the key facilities like your Translational Research Center for Europe in Martinsried. There's a new manufacturing site. They're investing a lot in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, we are a Japanese company, and that comes with some specifics on approach and culture. One is clearly the classical or typical Japanese approach in R&D with a very long-term perspective, which I believe is a competitive advantage in this field. We do a lot of basic research in Tokyo, actually. Our global enterprise headquarters is in Tokyo, and there is in Shinagawa a huge R&D site where early research, bench research, and targeted identification is happening. Thousands of scientists there in Tokyo. But we have, you're right, a very, very strong commitment to Europe as well. We have, as you said, some translational research facilities in Munich. Our European headquarters for the region is actually in Munich, as is the German affiliate. We do have a very, very strong investment and commitment also to manufacturing and clinical research in Europe. In Pfaffenhofen, not too far from Munich, there is a huge manufacturing site. We are investing now more than €1 billion as a commitment to this specific site in building new facilities to develop and produce monoclonal antibodies and ADCs, antibody drug conjugates for oncology here in Europe. So the vision is really having Pfaffenhofen, Europe, Munich as a hub to produce, develop, and distribute globally innovative medicines.
Well, certainly a European headquarters in Munich. It's convenient. It's close to everything. It's got a fantastic airport. You can get anywhere. Except Europe, we sometimes speak of as just one monolithic thing. And really, it's a bunch of different countries together. You're also dealing with work in Canada as well, I believe. How do you manage producing oncology solutions for all of these different diverse regulatory and healthcare regimes and landscapes right across Europe and Canada?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is not a homogeneous, monolithic region, I would say. It has inbuilt diversity, complexity. Obviously, EMA, the European Medicines Agency, is issuing centralized approvals for all 27 EU member states. So that's one, let's say, shared piece. And but look, Swiss is different, Canada is different. So even when it comes, Turkey is different when it comes to the UK now, when it comes to regulatory limitations, it's complex. And then, of course, there is no one-size-fits-all approach. There is different reimbursement systems. Market access is different country by country. There is specific needs for evidence generation. And this is why we work closely and trustfully with regulatory bodies, with authorities in general, healthcare providers, patient representatives. And it's always a balance of regional synergies where we do things above country agendas, but also in the individual countries. And we have presence in 18 countries, not in all 27 physically, but in 18 countries in Europe, plus Canada. So we try to meet the specific needs by leveraging shared learnings and synergies above country. And look, we do have strategic alliances, as you know, with AstraZeneca, another huge or big EU headquartered partner in oncology. So we're expanding our regional footprint beyond the 18 countries where we are physically present already. And the idea is for Europe, in collaboration with those partners, also Merck for future pipeline assets, to bring our innovative ADC therapies to more people living with cancer and faster, which we can only do together in this complex environment that you mentioned.
You've mentioned ADCs a couple of times. You've been active at DS since 2010, at least there. Your pipeline now, I've got it more than 30 indications. Can you walk me through the strengths of your ADC platform and just why it's such a game changer for oncology?
Yeah, a very good question. And it can be answered on very complex levels. I try to make it simple. As you know, Dylan, ADCs, so antibody drug conjugates, are a mode of action, let's say, where you have a very specific antibody with a linker connected to what we call a warhead, a very toxic chemotherapeutic that is too toxic and effective to be used systemically in a patient. So you need a very specific targeted delivery system, which the antibody guaranteed. So that's the idea behind ADCs. The idea itself is not super new. It's around for over 100 years, but there's significant technical challenges in the early ADCs in terms of stability, delivery, efficacy, side effects. And while others have turned away, actually, Daiichi Sankyo, with our Japanese persistent long-term perspective, remained committed and have actually iterative made this principle better and better to a level where I really believe we now have the best ADC platform, also in a technical sense, of many companies who also are active in that field. And what makes our ADC specific, and then it becomes a little bit technical, is a couple of distinct features. One is the specific payload, the warhead, so the toxic substance killing the cancer cell in the end, which is highly potent and is designed to degrade quickly once it has done its job. So it saves off-target toxicity. That's the idea. Our linker is very specific. So it's been cleaved, very specific and clean, allowing then the unleashed warhead and toxin to also move from one cell to the other. We call this the bystander effect. So not only the antibody targeted surface and the cell beneath it is killed, but the warhead can move to the next cell, which in solid tumors is really something important. Otherwise, you scratch the surface often of a tumor. So that's one. And the payload then causes specific tumor DNA damages. So it's really technical details. The bystander effect may possibly being the most important one that differentiates our ADCs from others. And look, there is one of the most important studies we have done was a head-to-head amongst our NO2 and HER2 directed breast cancer approved drug with another very established also ADC, same mode of action, and there was quite a significant difference in OS. So the technical details matter here. It's a complex way of treating cancer, and I think we got that right and have something that is really unique. And look, the data from our landmark clinical trials demonstrate how the ADCs continue to transform the treatment of breast cancer and beyond by really being technically very advanced.
Tell me a little bit more about that data. This is the data that you put out at ESMO just a few weeks ago now.
Yeah, there was a couple of data, really. There was like 8, let's say 7 major pivotal trials that we have released this year, and a couple of those at ESMO, just a couple of weeks back in Berlin. And the general trend, I would say, that was focused on breast cancer. What we have been showing there is that with DB11 and DB05, 2 trials that focus on earlier cure intended treatment settings, in the neoadjuvant and post-surgery setting, the benefit of NR2 is as strong and as convincing as it was already in the second line and third line trials that we have been already approved for and released earlier. So quantitatively, in early lines, you get even higher and longer response rate. If you look at our data from DB, so Destiny was the name of all these breast cancer targeted NR2 trials. Breast 01, a phase 2 trial, 16 months progression-free survival, which is already pretty good, and at the time was a huge success. Then later in Breast 03, a phase 3 trial, 28 months, that was second line, and then Destiny Breast 09, first line, more than 40 months PFS. You see, the earlier the move in the treatment lines, the better the success and the longer the responses. And at ESMO, DBO5 and DBO11 in neoadjuvant, so early cure-intended treatment approaches, have been showing that we can move even earlier. And the other important data set was T, so our next second TROP2 directed ADC, TB01, a study that in triple negative breast cancer, a disease that's very, very difficult to treat actually, and there hasn't been much progress in the last 10 years. This is the first OS improving, overall survival improving trial that we have shared there. Also something that clearly improves and changes treatment standards as we learn from physicians and external stakeholders.
There have been some other companies in the industry this year who've had a few setbacks with their ADC program. Is there a strategy or something you're adapting internally to try and balance the innovation that comes with ADC and the risks that come with oncology treatments in the first place?
Yeah, very, very good question. And yes, development of medicines, innovative drugs, specifically oncology, is a high-risk business, no doubt. Look, we have been, I would say, blessed. I wouldn't say lucky, but we have been blessed with really a very, very positive track records with our ADCs and our ADC platform. Out of the 7 trials I mentioned released this year, 6 have been very, very positive, which is a very unusual, I would say, positive track record in releasing data. But of course, there is risks also with new targets, with different target molecules, with different therapeutic areas. So breast cancer is different from lung, from gastrointestinal, from ovarian. We have at ESMO seen also very positive data of our next wave ADC pipeline assets. So we have seen first data of our 6th ADC, 3939, first in human phase 1/2 trials, which look very, very promising. We have been seeing positive data, phase 2 data from RDXD. That's an ADC we developed together with Merck in ovarian cancer. It's directed on CDH6 as a target. Also, again, very positive data showing high response rate in platinum-resistant, difficult-to-treat patients. The FDA, based on those data, just granted us a breakthrough designation for the regulatory path forward there. And we've also seen positive data on IDXD in small cell lung cancer. So in general, yeah, it's not easy to balance risk, investment, and the opportunities. We have been doing well, I would say, so far. And part of how we try to balance is really partnering with other companies like Merck or AstraZeneca, leaders in the field, to double down on resourcing clinical trial programs, having more shots on goal, having more studies funded, having more diseases and therapeutic areas targeted to at the end deliver on the promise of those medicines.
Yeah, talking of those trials, you've got dozens of trials underway at the moment in a couple of dozen European countries as well. Breast cancer, lung cancer, gastric, colorectal, hematological. How do you coordinate all of this big program to make sure that everything's efficient, that there's patient access, this has got to be a logistical challenge of some magnitude.
Yeah, it's clearly a very complex and a very broad and deep program we have, and that's a nice challenge to have. I would say a very robust pipeline across multiple types of cancer. You mentioned that ovarian, breast, lung, gastric, colorectal. There is more than 20 novel compounds in development in more than 60 trials in 24 European and Canadian countries. So yes, it's complex. We have a strong R&D group, and we have strong partners, external partners, but also Merck and AZ to exactly deliver on the potential of those medicines, expanding and extending our portfolio to deliver therapies on more patients. So yeah, we have standard approaches. We have close alignment with R&D partners from Daiichi Sankyo and our external partners. And so far, we have been able to see a solid progress in the development in a wide range of modality. But yes, it is a high risk and it's high investment, and it's a very complex challenge. But again, having many different shots on the goal, a number of compounds studied in many trials, is a nice challenge to have, I would say. It really increases the probability of finding breakthrough approaches to improve treatment paradigms.
What role do groups like patient advocacy groups have in helping you design and adapt these sort of trials?
Yeah, look, patient advocacy groups have a crucial role, I think, personally, and that, let's say, conviction opinion really stems from the time when I was basically treating patients or working with them on a different level, very, very concretely. Look, we call our approach at Daiichi Sankyo patient centricity, and other companies try the same. To me, that means not just having patient needs in mind with each decision that you take, but also actively involving them. When you design trials, when you design actually therapies, and when you mitigate side effects, also when you discuss policies to bring via market access medicines then to patients. And we need patient advocates. We need professional, let's say, ambassadors for patient needs to partner with us, and we try to involve them as much as we can. I personally speak a lot with patient advocates. Our R&D colleagues do this. There have been really important insights, understanding their needs, their concerns, and also opportunities better. So they are key, I think, in making us better and staying on track in actually really picking the high need areas for our research and doing our trials right. And then also in the last step after approval, making sure patients have access fast and broad to innovative medicines.
One of the other groups that top pharma companies work with are, of course, biotechs and sourcing innovation externally there. Daiichi Sankyo's open innovation approach, you emphasize collaboration with biotechs, of course, but also academics, with venture firms. Can you tell me a little bit about that? In particular, I want to ask about this 5 ADCs and the next wave strategy. What is that, and how is it going to drive the work that you're doing?
Yeah, actually, the 5 ADCs and next wave, that's in a nutshell the core strategy. So maximizing the 5 ADCs where we have pretty mature clinical data. I mentioned a couple of key studies earlier in our discussions, and then the next wave with enhanced linkers, different payloads that are a little bit more far out, but have huge potential to go further. And to achieve that, we believe we are stronger together with strong, smart partners outside of Daiichi Sankyo. So AstraZeneca is is one example with NR2, a very successful, probably one of the most successful alliances, I would say, in developing new medicines right now. But there's also partners like the Sarah Connor Research Institute, there is biotechs, there is, of course, also collaborations with leading consortia and institutions across the globe to accelerate the exploration of novel targets and really early innovative technologies. There is MD Anderson, Gustave Roussy in Paris, Sanford Burnham, LISA, study groups. So there is different levels of external partnerships, like big companies who bring a lot of potential, like in funding, but also in operationalizing complex research programs. But there's also smaller biotechs or academic institutions where we can learn from on what's the right target, what is the anticipated standard in a couple of years from now. And again, we believe we as Daiichi Sankyo are much stronger together. And looking back at the last 5 years, the reality has proven that right, I would say.
What are the criteria that you use when you're choosing a biotech partner? I always hear about data. If the data is great, if it's clean, if we can work with it, that's one thing. But does culture come into it as well? Or does personal relationships come into it?
Yeah, it probably depends a little bit on what you specifically need this partner on. Obviously, when it comes to academic centers, it should be the ones that are really at the forefront, at the cutting edge of research and innovation in a scientific, in an academic setting. When it comes to companies, of course, the capabilities, also research capabilities. Look, Merck is one of probably the pharmaceutical companies out there that has the strongest in-house R&D organization that is available there. So that's then capabilities that are important criteria. And I personally believe the cultural fit also is important. Certainly, if it is such an long-term commitment as we have with those two companies in partnering from development through commercialization, through the whole chain, let's say, of value creation, then a cultural fit is important. And that means to me and us as a Japanese company being trustworthy, being a trusted partner, being willing to collaborate and communicate transparently, having the same goals and values, focus on patients and innovation. And then I think there is a high probability of those partnerships being successful by winning together and being actually really together delivering on those purposes.
Is there a recent deal that sticks out in your mind, or a recent joint venture that is really a great example of this external innovation strategy?
If the question is specifically on Daiichi Sankyo, I would say clearly what sticks out is what we have been together with AstraZeneca able to deliver and revolutionizing, I would say. And I'm not a fan of superstitious, let's say, fancy superlatives, but what we together have been able to change in how breast cancer is treated, how it is even thought of by physicians, categorized, stratified, is pretty impressive in just a couple of years. And now we have with NR2, but also Datroway soon, the potential, our two companies, that 90% of all breast cancer patients have the chance and are eligible to benefit one of those two medicines in their patient journey, which is massive, I would say, an impact on people's lives and cancer patients' hopes and perspectives. How we have been able to actually define breast cancer new. HER2 low, in the old days, 25% max of patients have been considered HER2 positive, benefiting from HER2 directed therapies. Now, with NO2, unleashing the potential and showing it in the right, smart, well-executed trials together, we have been showing that there is this HER2-low field, another 60% or so of patients who have the same benefit of this medicine. This is totally changing how physicians now test breast cancer patients, how they treat them. I think pretty impressive and really a game changer for patients with that disease. And we wouldn't have been able to do this alone. AstraZeneca, look, NO2, it was our science. We still manufacture the asset. This is our patent. So they couldn't have done it without us. And combining our strength, we have done a lot of impactful change in the field of breast cancer.
You know, another area of innovation where people are looking externally is drug discovery when it comes to AI. Has your oncology team started using AI yet internally?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and of course, AI is a very important new modality tool, and of course, also Daiichi Sankyo is using it and experimenting or piloting projects where AI is making things, increasing probabilities of success, making us faster in very different way. You mentioned like R&D, you mentioned target identification, and of course it can be hopefully. We haven't seen the potential fully translated into actually successes when it comes to new medicine, but it has a huge potential there, I would say. And there's already like examples where AI is influencing drug candidates in development. But at the same time, and just to be realistic or manage expectations, I think AI supported or developed medicines will likely take similar time amounts as other medicines to reach the markets, looking at the need to clinical proof benefits, looking at the regulatory schedules and timelines. So I don't think it will necessarily in the foreseeable future change necessarily the timelines and the approaches. I think it will increase by better target recognition the probability of success. And probably in the next couple of years, fully AI designed therapies will reach patients following probably a similar clinical approach and regulatory approach, but coming with a higher probability of those targets actually being successful, hopefully less negative trials. Another, let's say, quick example where we have been just here in Europe very recently experimenting, I would say, successfully with AI is what we call DAISY, which is a model and language model where our medical colleagues use this to simplify reference handling, complex medical questions that we get from physicians being answered faster, more quality assured, more consistent across the 27 complex different environments, and freeing up then by increasing quality of our scientific advice and answers to physicians, freeing up like lifetime of our colleagues to speak and interact with physicians. So that's just one concrete example where AI is changing how we work as well.
What's something you're looking forward to in oncology now? What are you optimistic about in maybe the next 5 or 10 years? Is there something that is just making you smile when you think it's almost here?
I smile as you ask this, and I'm by nature, I think, a very optimistic person. And looking back at the times when I worked in the clinic 20 years back and where we are now, it is a totally different game. There is so much progress, innovation that actually really has transformed how we treat cancer, that there is good reason and proof of being optimistic. But still, 2 million cancer deaths every year in Europe only is too many. There is an aging population. Cancer is likely to increase despite the innovation we see as a cause of death. So there is a lot to do. I just believe we are on the right track. And the highlights that I shared earlier that we discussed in triple negative, for instance, really one of the hard fields now, having for the first time in a decade a medicine that improves overall survival, translating benefit of HER2-directed therapies in adjuvant settings into hopefully cure for more patients. So I think my vision is cancer becoming a chronic disease and hopefully for many patients a curable disease in the next 10 years or so. And I think in many therapeutic areas, we can get there. And look, you asked what I'm specifically excited about. Looking back at the last 20 years, I think the personalized medicine targets for small molecules, molecular defined therapy approaches after more generic chemotherapy have been a breakthrough. We all know this. That was like started 20 years back. If you look at how lung cancer is treated now, driven by mutations and very specific, totally different game. Then immuno-oncology was a huge progress, really the next level. Checkpoint inhibitors and everything, CAR-T. And I believe the ADCs, antibody drug conjugates, could be and have delivered already on the promise to be, again, the next wave, a new level, new modalities that hopefully address the unmet needs of more patients and with a deep and long-lasting response or even cure for many. So I would say if I think in three waves, TKIs, molecular targeted therapies, then immuno-oncology, and now ADCs in many more therapeutic areas, be a lot of promise for actually really meaningful change in cancer treatment algorithms.
So cancer as a chronic condition or even a curable condition, this is something, it's not science fiction.
It's not science fiction. It's not science fiction. And we see in some disease areas this already being reality and already being the really perspective for patients already now. We just need more of that. And that's my vision. That's what Daiichi Sankyo wants to contribute, actually, by bringing new, much needed, innovative medicines to more patients in Europe and, of course, globally.
Markus, where can people learn a little bit more about Daiichi Sankyo?
You can visit us in Munich. Give me a shout before or an email. We have as we discussed, our European headquarters there. We also have visitors in Pfaffenhofen. It's a very impressive, not just building site, but manufacturing site. And over the next 5 years, there will be a lot of activity there. We are, of course, present at scientific congresses, conventions. You find us in the internet as a start, and there's enough contact, let's say, partners that would be happy to share more about our legacy, our Japanese roots, our prospects, values, and what's next at Daiichi Sankyo.
Markus, thanks for joining us today on Beyond Biotech.
Thanks, Dallin, for having me. It was a really nice conversation. Thank you.
Once again, thanks to Cadence for their support of this episode. Looking for the perfect space to grow your life science company? Cadence Science Partner is Europe's leading provider of cutting-edge lab and office spaces, tailored to your needs. Cadence puts you at the center of innovation, giving you the chance to connect with top researchers, universities, and investors through its international network. Here, you'll join a vibrant community of innovators driving real change. Are you ready to take your research to the next level? Learn more at cadence.com, where innovation thrives. That's it for this episode. Don't forget to check out all the latest news and analysis at Labiotech.eu. I hope wherever you are in the world, you have a great week ahead. Thanks for listening, and I hope you'll join us again next time for another Beyond Biotech.